Time once again for the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast, one of our favorite podcasts we do each and every year. We are taking pen to paper, finger to keyboard, and picking our coach rankings. We're doing it by tiers, which we've always done, but we're also adding in 1 to 32. We'll talk about how much the tiers are important versus the individual rankings, but we'll break them down. Each and every one of the 32 NFL coaches, we'll also group them by tiers. It's coming up right now on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.
You are listening to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Chiefs on planet Earth, breaking down the Chiefs like no one else can. Red, Gold, and Bold is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro. Jeff Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Sam McDowell is a columnist for the Kansas City Star. Soren Petro is the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are the hosts of the Best Chiefs podcast, Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro.
Breaking it down 1 to 32, the NFL head coaches. We'll put them into tiers. We've got 6 tiers, by the way, for all of the coaches. Looking forward to seeing what everyone has put together. Gentlemen, let's begin. Jeff, do you want to lead us off? We'll take them. Again, we've got the tiers, but we're also ranking them in order. So let's break it down. Your tier 1 coaches are who?
Tier 1, I got 5 guys. And for full disclosure, the only guys who make it into my tier 1 have won a championship. So that's the biggest thing. You can't be in tier 1 unless you've won a championship for me. So I've got number 1, Andy Reid, number 2, Sean McVay, number 3, Nick Sirianni, number 4, John Harbaugh, number 5, Mike Tomlin.
Okay. Mike Tomlin, you still think is a tier 1? That would be my first question.
Yeah, wow.
Yes. Tier 1. I mean, I know he hasn't done a whole lot in the playoffs in a long time, but has never had a losing record and got a championship.
Last won a playoff game in 2016.
Yeah.
I mean, there is like
a championship. How many guys are going to? Let's got championships.
Both. I want to be clear. Both points are 100% valid, and that's what makes him the toughest coach. I think the toughest coach.
I agree. He's the toughest one on here.
Yeah. I've been to 2. Been to 2 Super Bowls.
I think it comes down to me on Tomlin. How much do you put the fact that they haven't been able to get the quarterback right? I mean, even with Ben Roethlisberger's final stretch, and towards the end, I don't think he was that great to begin with. But how much is the coach responsible for getting him to move on to a quarterback or being a part of the process to finding the right quarterback? That's clearly, I mean, like if you had a team, if all of a sudden Josh Allen said, I want a new coach, and the Buffalo Bills fired Sean McDermott and Mike Tomlin was out there, you'd feel great about bringing him in. If Andy Reid retired and Matt Nagy had moved on, there wasn't an in-house guy, and Mike Tomlin was sitting out there, you said, who are we going to get? And you grab Mike Tomlin and a good offensive coordinator, you'd feel great, right? But it's tough. I think he's the toughest one to grade.
How many guys on this list could take what he's had at quarterback over the last few years and get a team to the playoffs?
And I would argue what some of the offensive minds would do. If Sean McVay had it, would Sean McVay have gotten him to a better quarterback? Because he'd have said, no on this guy, no on that guy. No, this guy over here is a better guy. Does being an offensive mind, you're going to see an offensive flavor to my coaches, which will shock no one who's a regular listener to this podcast. I think you should always try to have an offensive coach. But I think the question with Mike Tomlin is how much is the fact that whether it's just because he coaches the defensive side or he doesn't get the offensive side, how much of the quarterback equation is on him? Because the head coach carries a lot of juice.
Yeah, but in that organization, they don't have – that's a more rigid structure. Like, he's not the one picking the quarterback.
But he's definitely the guy winning over
say.
the personnel. But he's definitely the most, like, the ownership listens to him more than anybody else, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, he has to wear some of it on the court.
Yeah, but he's not the guy picking them at the end of the day. Like, it's a collaborative effort, but it's not the same setup as Andy Reid and Brett Veach or Pete Carroll had with John Schneider. It's more of a.
Do we know that?
Here's what you're getting.
Do we know that they're telling Mike Tomlin, here are the players you will have, coach him, shut up and dribble, Mike. We'll do the like that. That's not actually the mindset there.
It's not that deliberate, but I think it's very clear that there is a pecking order there. It's Green Bay's had the same situation forever in there. It's like, that's why Mike Holmgren left, and that's why Matt LaFleur was dealing with Aaron Rodgers for like. There's some places prefer to have GM coach. And
well, I think if Mike Tomlin didn't have a major say in personnel, I think he'd be gone.
Yeah,
I don't think he'd still be there. So I think he has to go.
He has a say, but I don't think he doesn't have a deciding say.
He has enough say for me to put the fact that they are not a dominant team ever anymore on him. That's all I'll say there. We'll get to where I have Tomlin later. Sam, where's your tier 1 look?
So at the top here, I'll say I ranked these guys by, like, if I had a coach opening, I'm sort of blind to what my roster is going to be. Just who do I want to hire today? So I give Mike Tomlin credit for his, but you're going to see him much further down my list.
Okay.
And just FYI, I'm going to have quite a few outliers on this. If this was a Gary Parrish poll attacks, I think I'd be mentioned a few times on these rankings.
Okay.
My first tier, I've only got 3 guys: Andy Reid, number 1, Sean McVay, number 2, and John Harbaugh, number 3. I think number 1 should be obvious, 3 Super Bowls. Number 2, Sean McVay's won a Super Bowl. He's been to another. It's also considerable for me, and I know you guys, I know, Jeff, you had Sean McVay number 2, so I'm not arguing with you guys here, but in case anyone out there doesn't agree with this, it's considerable to me that Sean McVay has a coaching tree, and some of those other guys are pretty high on my list, by the way. Like, Kevin O'Connell's one of his guys, Matt LaFleur's his guy, Zach Taylor. Like, that matters to me, that his system is now spread throughout the league. And then I've always thought John Harbaugh was an underrated coach. I mean, 17 years in the league, he's only won fewer than 8 games once. He's had to replace coordinators, offense and defense. He's won a Super Bowl. You could certainly argue the postseason success needs to be better recently with what he's had, but he's also won with different styles of quarterbacks. I think he's just transitioned as the game's transitioned pretty well.
So
and we could probably
doesn't make your cut.
Not in tier 1, he doesn't.
No, nope.
Or why?
Well, let me jump in on this and say that I have the exact same 3 in the exact same order, right? I only have 3 guys up here, and I think it might be interesting to maybe Sam will never have to go back to back, but maybe we'll snake draft this all the way around, so we just kind of roll into similar names, so that we're not always firing on Jeff first, right? I'll unveil my second tier next, but I've got the same 3, and the Sirianni one comes up, and I've got him down in the next tier. Right. And so let me just give you my second tier, because I think I agree with everything that Sam said. I don't really have anything to add. Andy Reid's been number 1 on my list for a while. Even I remember having arguments about Belichick and Andy Reid. And part of when Sam said how he does it, I kind of picture this as, if I'm hiring a coach today, where am I going to put him? Right. Like Bill Belichick, if he were coaching, like, no one was saying Bill Belichick was their first choice his last couple of years in New England. Career Achievement Awards, he's number 1. Right. So, like, the Super Bowl thing is important to me, and I don't have anyone who hasn't won one either, but it's not everything. And so I'll roll into tier 2 and say that tier 2 for me then comes Jim Harbaugh at number 4, Sean Payton at 5, Kyle Shanahan at 6, Nick Sirianni at 7. All 4 of those guys have been in a Super Bowl. 2 of them have won it. 8, Dan Campbell, 9, Kevin O'Connell, and 10, Matt LaFleur. All right. That's my tier 2. And you mentioned Sirianni. So let's talk about Sirianni, because you've got him in number 1, Jeff. He was on his way out at the beginning of last year. He is a combustible pain in the ass. He brought his kids up to the I'm just going to tell you, it's not that these things should make him fired or the end all be all, but they are a window into the soul of potential problems moving forward. He brought his kids up to the post-game interview to deflect the fact that he had gotten into an MF session with his own fan base. He is a ticking time bomb. It will not end well whenever it ends in Philadelphia, and it won't end well wherever he goes after that. If I'm wrong and he coaches for 20 years in Philadelphia and wins 5 championships, I will be happy to admit I'm wrong. But putting Nick Sirianni ahead of guys like that have had constant success and for a longer period of time.
What has Nick Sirianni had? He hasn't had constant success?
Not for as long as Kyle Shanahan has. And as I looked at,
he's done more than Kyle Shanahan.
As I look at, he's won a Super Bowl, but he has not won more divisions. He has not won more conference championships.
Well, he's won as many conference championships as Kyle Shanahan has.
No, he's won 2.
One. No, he lost to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl too.
Oh, that's right. He's
won 2, and then Sirianni.
I've got Kyle Shanahan 6 and Sirianni 7. So I've got him.
Well, I mean, Shanahan, I'll point out, half of his coaching seasons have included double-digit losses. Half of them.
I know. And listen, you're preaching to the choir. I'm the guy who was always the Kyle Shanahan hater.
Well, you've got him 6.
I've got him 6 because I think now there's a gross overreaction the other way. Like, he has been consistently good.
What did you have him last year?
I didn't look at that because I didn't want to.
It'd be amazing if you elevated him in your ranking.
I probably did. I probably overreacted to where other people had him, but because I think he'll probably bounce back. They're having the bloodletting they should have on their roster now, so they're going to erode. But Kyle Shanahan, I think, and Nick Sirianni are the same guy. I really do. I mean, I think Sirianni's going to
One's got a championship.
And the other one was leading in the fourth quarter of both. Like, I guess, so that's it. Super Bowl's the only thing. So I should expect that Pete Carroll will be no lower than there are, 5?
Oh, Pete Carroll's in his second tier.
Pete Carroll is no lower than 7th on your list because he's won a championship, and there are only 7 guys in the league who have.
Well, Jeff, you go ahead and go second.
Yeah, everything Sam said about John Harbaugh is applicable to Nick Sirianni. It's just that Harbaugh's been doing it longer.
Oh,
that matters.
That matters.
Yeah. I agree with your point, Jeff. But I think that matters. Maybe I'll go second because Sirianni pops up.
I guess why does it not matter for Sean McVay then, who's only been coaching for 7 years?
Because he's better. Those are like tiebreakers.
Everything you said about Nick Sirianni had nothing to do with coaching. It's personality.
But Sean McVay has never been on the brink of being fired. Like, you don't think that at some point the combustible nature, Sean McVay is not sideways with his wideout. He's not sideways with his quarterback, right? Like, he just operates in a professional manner. The unprofessional way with which Nick Sirianni carries himself will ultimately be his downfall. Like, are you telling me you would run out and if any coach is available, your third choice to run your organization is Nick Sirianni?
I'm saying that doesn't erase what he's accomplished. However he gets there,
it does not. But I'm asking. But just answer. Just you could say no, but that's not how I ranked him. That's fine.
Yeah.
Your third choice. You can have any coach you want. Your third choice to run your operation is Nick Sirianni.
Yeah, I'd take him right now. Yeah.
Third.
Yeah.
Over John Harbaugh.
2 Super Bowl appearances, 1 championship, which was a blowout over the best team.
So no
last
thought
7 years,
to the vision over the horizon. You're going to hire
the playoffs every year.
So would Belichick be your number one choice if you were open, right? If you had a job opening right now, would you hire Bill Belichick?
No.
Then why is the only reason you'd hire Sirianni is 2 Super Bowl appearances and a championship?
I think you're underrating the things he's done. One, he's won.
He's 7.
What?
He's 7 on my list. I just don't know how he can be above John Harbaugh.
How he's been to 2 Super Bowls.
Okay.
John Harbaugh hasn't.
All right. Who will go to more moving forward?
Who? Between Harbaugh and Sirianni?
Yes.
Does that matter? We're basing on what they're at right now. I didn't know the criteria was what are they going to do going forward.
Well, I think that speaks to I think that speaks to who's the better coach right now.
But also there's some coaches that rosters aren't within their control. I don't think. I mean, we talked about that with Mike Tomlin.
Yeah.
Howie Roseman.
Not once you get to a certain point. Right? Not once you get to. There is nobody who's badass and is still eating it on their roster, right? Like everybody, the more success you have, the more control you have. Now, sometimes that's your
not over Howie Roseman in Philly.
Yeah,
not over Howie Roseman in Philly because Sirianni's an ass.
Or even Eric. But the thing is, you're putting so much emphasis on that part of it, and you're not even talking. Can we say he's a really good coach?
Okay, let me ask you a question. If he is fired in 2 years, like Doug Peterson was he the better coach? And John Harbaugh goes to 2 more AFC Championship games, doesn't have another Super Bowl.
If that
was
happens,
he the better coach?
We're talking about right now.
Okay, well, I think I expect it to happen, and I think that's part of the equation. I think it's definitely part of the equation. Sam, let's go with your tier 2.
Well, I've got Nick Sirianni 4th overall.
Wow, that's brutal.
Thank you.
I mean, Nick Sirianni is 48-20. The team won 4 games the year before he arrived. They had a quarterback that, by the way, literally every team in the NFL passed on. He won 9 games, 14 games, 11 games, 14 games. And their offense in those years have gone from 12th to 3rd, 7th, 7th. Like they've been legit on his side of the ball. So
he's got a coaching tree.
And both those coordinators got hired, and then they won the Super Bowl afterwards. I've always thought that was a big test of a coach, and it's one of the reasons why you'll see one of these guys lower on my list than others. But Nick Sirianni 4th. I guess this guy's absent from your tier 2 altogether, Soren. And I did think I'd have him highest on the list, but I've got Sean McDermott next.
No, God, no, is he not? He is not.
I know,
he is absolutely absent in my tier 2. I don't know how Sirianni and McDermott can be anywhere near each other based upon the criteria I'm hearing about Sirianni.
6 straight seasons of 10+ wins, 5 straight division titles. Okay. He's won a playoff game in 5 straight years. And if Patrick Mahomes didn't exist, the Bills would have multiple championships during this era, I believe. Sean Payton, Kyle Shanahan, another guy who I'll probably have higher up on the list than anybody. I've got Kevin O'Connell 8th.
Kyle Shanahan, I've got Kevin O'Connell 9th. And then that's it for tier 2?
Yep.
Okay. Jeff.
My tier 2 are guys who either have won it all or who I think can win it all. Okay. Now, the teams they have didn't factor into that. I think that these guys are really good coaches who can win championships. Kyle Shanahan is 6. Jim Harbaugh is 7. Dan Campbell is 8. Sean McDermott is 9. Matt LaFleur is 10. Kevin O'Connell is 11. And then I've got Peyton 12, Carroll 13, Mike Vrabel 14.
God, Pete Carroll behind Dan Campbell, but Pete Carroll has a Super Bowl.
He's in the same tier. That's the whole point.
He's 5 spots lower.
Yeah, he didn't have 2.
He's got 1. He's got 1 more.
We all knew he was waiting on you to put somebody with a Super Bowl lower than somebody with that one.
I just don't get how Soren can not acknowledge anything about Nick Sirianni that's positive. And is just jumping all over his personality.
I have
48 and 20 and two Super Bowl appearances and 1 win in the last 3 years.
I haven't. And listen, I don't want to turn this into a Nick Sirianni podcast, but cratered and fell apart when he was barreling towards being the 1 seed 2 years ago. Like, I don't understand how the negatives don't factor into you. Like, they do a little bit. I
think it says even more. They won a championship after that.
Yes, and they were 30th in the league in points allowed that year. Like, to me, I think Sirianni's part of it. You know, you can't absolve a head coach from being just part of one side of football, but
I've got him 7. I don't understand how this becomes all about Nick Sirianni. Like, why is it like the guy has faults? You don't acknowledge him. I do.
Because he's the only person's personality to bring up on this thing.
Let's not act like Jeff and I are the only ones talking about Nick Sirianni on this podcast.
Mike Dickey is beloved in Chicago, and he was one of the most mercurial personalities in the history of football. He was like one of the coach arguably the greatest team ever.
So based upon the logic I've heard for where Sirianni is, Pete Carroll should be right next to him.
So we're through 2 tiers. What are the guys we have on this list who only appear on? Soren, how many guys did you get through on your second tier?
I had 6 on my second tier, so I have 10 total on the board. You have 8 on the board.
You only have 9 total on the board then, right? Because we both only had 3 on.
I'm sorry, I have 7. I'm sorry, I was looking at 4 through 10 are on the board.
Jeff, you didn't have Sean McDermott anywhere on your second tier either.
No,
he did.
Okay,
he was number 9.
Okay, so
this is why I suggested.
So you're absent.
Sharing them with each other, so when we had these discussions, you could see where it is.
So you're absent. You're without Sean McDermott is popping out so far through the
Yes.
first two tiers. I'm without Jim Harbaugh so far throughout the first two tiers.
Yep.
Now I've got a shorter list on those first two, and I'm also without Dan Campbell that I think both of you guys had on those first two tiers.
Yes,
but how are you guys defining your second tier then? Like what's
the second best group? The second best group of coaches.
Yeah, I think that's a good point because, Jeff, you like to put a label on it.
Yeah.
And I think that makes you good or bad, right or wrong. I think, one, it forces you to be accountable on each coach when you say this is what these guys are. And I think that is a strength from that. But I think the weakness also is it forces you to tug guys in there because, like, well, this guy's done this. And for me, I'm big. We do this with the Big 12 and SEC football and basketball coaches on the radio show. And I always say, listen, this is about where they are now. And like, you know, and we define, and we say, and that's what we've said here, but we say now and going forward. Right. And so to try to take away.
But that's based on their track record.
Yeah, and
their track record's informing those decisions.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But like when I would see things the last few years that Bill Belichick was ahead of Andy Reid, it drove me crazy. I'm like, there is no way he is better than Andy Reid right now. And listen, he's won. And what would people say? He's won 6 Super Bowls. Well, how many more is he going to win?
Well, nobody hired him. Nobody hired
him. So don't tell me 3 years ago he was better than Andy Reid. He wasn't, even though every one of these rankings you would see had him there. So that's kind of the thing I use to define it. But I think you are right. I think McDermott is a great talking point, and we're going to get there.
Well, and Pete Carroll. The other thing that's interesting about Pete Carroll to me, Soren, with what you just said, is Pete Carroll was let go, and nobody hired him that cycle either. I mean, he had to sit out a year too because, and that's sort of the criteria that drove a lot of my decisions is if this guy's available, anyone who's in my first two tiers, if this guy's available, I'm hiring him. And there's a lot of guys who I don't care if I'm employing a head coach, I'm firing my head coach to hire one of these 8 guys who's in my top 2 tiers. I don't know that I would say that about Pete Carroll.
I think that's fair. All right, we'll get into tier 3 coming up. We'll break down basically, I don't know, where Sean McDermott is. That's one of our big things that's looming after we hear from our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews. Every project comes with a written warning. Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. Northland Injury Law, Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers, serving KC for more than 40 years, voted Kansas City's #1 accident lawyers, helping people with serious injuries from car accidents, work accidents, falls, and other personal injuries. Northland Injury Law doesn't get paid unless they get money for their client. Don't wait, get compensated now. If you have a case, text HURT to 22222. That's HURT to 22222 or call 816-400-HURT. That's 816-400-4878. The choice of a lawyer is an important one and should not be based solely upon advertisements. All right, let's get to tier number 3. We snake around. Jeff, you are up, even though you've got a lot more than everybody. Where's tier 3 for you?
These are the good, not great guys that are in tier 3. And the reason
what number are you starting with here, Jeff?
He's
at
starting
15. 15. And the reason the guys above in tier 2 aren't in with these guys is that they're not the same company. So Ty Bowles, 15, D'Amico Ryan, 16, Dan Quinn, 17, Zach Taylor, 18, Kevin Stefanski, 19, and Mike McDaniel, 20.
Okay. Any reaction to that, Sam? Anyone jump at you where we are on tier 3? What you or don't like?
Tier-wise, Jeff and I are pretty far off. Number-wise, it's much more similar because I just have smaller at the top of my list.
Yeah, I think that's why it's important to this year add the number rankings, because I think tiers you can lose. Like I think you can see more of the thinking. It's just like where you're defining the pockets and the groups that are there that ends up making it kind of jump at you. I do think Zach Taylor is an interesting one.
Zach Taylor was one of the harder. There were a few that were hard to grade. You mentioned Mike Tomlin. Zach Taylor's on that list as well. I guess I'll point out, because it's coming up for me, that Jeff hasn't ranked a new coach yet. Pete Carroll's a retread. He hasn't ranked a new coach yet in his top 20.
And they're all going to be at the bottom. So, yeah.
And I think that's
spoiler alert. Yeah.
I think that's totally fair. It's not how I did it.
Yeah.
Some of the guys who are available this offseason, I think, are better than some guys who are already employed.
And I think that's fair. By the way, I did notice one mistake on mine that I'm correcting here. Okay.
You just moved Sirianni up?
No, I did not. That did not happen. Not anyway, not anyhow. No, did that not happen? All right. Where are you at, Sam, on tier 2?
Tier 3. My number 3 starts at number 9. I've got Jim Harbaugh at 9, Matt LaFleur 10. I think I'm the low man on Dan Campbell at 11. I'd like to see what's going to happen when he has to replace 2 coordinators. I think I'm going to have Dan Quinn higher than most people. I've got him at 12, and I've got this guy higher than I know everybody. I mentioned I'm going to have some outliers. Dan Quinn at 12, Ben Johnson at 13, and D'Amico Ryans at 14.
A first-year head coach in there.
Yeah, and the couple outliers I'll explain. I mean,
wait a minute, hang on. Who did you have after Harbaugh?
Jim Harbaugh, Matt LaFleur at 10, Dan Campbell at 11, Dan Quinn at 12, Ben Johnson at 13, D'Amico Ryans at 14. And like I said, I knew going into this I was going to have a couple outliers, so those were the ones I made notes on. But Quinn at 12, he's a defensive-minded coach who this year turned into an aggressive offensive coach and trusted to keep his offense on the field on 4th down as much as anybody. He put the game in a rookie quarterback's hands. I think that Dan Quinn has proved that coaches can grow too. He's not stuck in the ways that failed him in Atlanta, for example.
I'll say this: Dan Quinn is in tier 3 for me as well, and he's ranked 14th overall. You've got him at 12. He's in tier 3 for Jeff as well, and Jeff's got him 17. So you said be an outlier, but I think we all view Dan Quinn kind of the same.
Okay. Well, then 13. I mean, I don't know where you've got Ben Johnson, but
not this high. I'm more with Jeff. I'm somewhere in between you and Jeff on the.
Yeah, I get that. I think it's totally understandable. The guy's won 0 NFL football games. He did take over a Lions offense that was supposed to be on the worst end of a trade with the Rams, and his teams were top 5 in points and top 5 in yards all 3 years. Like I said, with the quarterback who was supposedly the worst end of the deal. The other thing is, I think we've seen Ben Johnson shift. Last year, to Jeff's point in a podcast a couple of weeks ago, where he mentions the fact that these teams had to start running the ball because of this too deep stuff. Ben Johnson solved that. Like, his team was a great running team last year. They didn't play the exact same way offensively that they did the year before. So it shows me that it's not a guy who thinks he cracked the code on the league and stuck with that code. I mean, he has continued to evolve. But there's nobody on all of our list who's going to be a bigger mover next year based on what happens with Caleb Williams. Because there's a lot of guys I think that will move, but I think nobody
after 1 year, if he does, what would
I think if Caleb,
the rest of us, but for you, you're kind of.
I think if Caleb Williams is the same guy he was last year, he's going to just absolutely plummet on my list. I think if the Bears go 11-6 or something like that, I think we're all going to be talking about, is this guy in our second tier on this list?
not Soren.
At 11-6, he won't be tier 2 for me. For one year, one go. No.
If Caleb Williams is like a guy who
he gets
we're talking about
overall pick in the draft, the consent, and
he stunk last year.
Wins 11 games.
He stunk last year.
That's why he has.
That's pretty extreme that he stunk.
That Caleb Williams stunk last year.
His numbers compared to like Peyton Manning or John Elway's rookie, he wasn't great, but he wasn't a disaster. Like, his rookie numbers are pretty good.
Why is Matt Eberflus unemployed?
Because he lost.
Because he should have been fired the year before. He's not an offensive coach. His
quarterback stunk last year.
He finished fired for a lot of reasons.
Out of the 32 qualifying quarterbacks in QBR, he finished 28th. He was below Anthony Richardson, Daniel Jones, Aaron Rodgers.
He was
Russell
a rookie.
Wilson. He stunk. I'm saying when you say he stunk,
Look
you're
at
grading
Josh
him.
Allen's numbers his first year.
But that's not the curve. The curve isn't as a rookie.
No, it doesn't fit your narrative. That's the problem.
This Ben Johnson doesn't get prime Caleb Williams. He gets second year Caleb Williams.
Yeah, which is better. Second year, that's better. A guy who's had mistakes and learned he's not God's gift to the quarterback is maybe more humble.
So Peyton Manning was great as a rookie. That's what you're saying.
He was horrible.
Exactly.
No, he was not horrible.
His numbers.
He was not horrible. He set a record for touchdown passes for quarterbacks as a rookie. So Peyton Manning was not horrible. He learned lessons.
How do you call Peyton Manning horrible and have any gripe with me saying that Caleb Williams stunk? I don't. How is that possibly any different?
I'm not calling Peyton Manning.
I would say
Jeff did. He said Peyton Manning stunk. Caleb Williams led the league in sacks taken, led the league, had the worst pressure to sack ratio in the NFL by 4% last year.
I would say
he was not good in any fashion last year.
I would say stinking is like Achilles Smith. Stinking is like
I didn't say the guy's potential is shot, but there is in what metric did Caleb Williams play good football last year?
There was a stretch when they got rid of the OC and they really kind of dumbed down the offense and had him run more, throw less, that they got better. They were better for a stretch. Yeah. I mean, he had an uptick during the course of the year.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just think it's funny.
Look at it.
I just think it's funny. The first evidence for Caleb Williams is they stopped asking him to throw the ball.
Yes. Listen.
Terrific.
To your point, if he wins a championship in year 2, yes, he will go way up. But if he just goes 11-6, that's like the wash to me. No,
they were 5-12 last year.
If he goes 15-10, teams turn around like that all the time, and then the guy wins Coach of the Year, and then 2 years. That's Kevin Stefanski in year 2.
Yeah.
Oh, that's all that is.
The whole offensive line.
Anecdotes does not equal trend.
The quarterback. Well, that's all you're throwing is one-off anecdotes. You just don't like the ones that get thrown back.
What anecdotes did I have on that?
You throw one guy at us, and then the guy that gets thrown back that doesn't fit the bill, then
which one?
That doesn't count.
Which one? Which one doesn't fit?
There's so many names flying around, which I don't care. Which one do you want to go over?
Well, you said I'm using anecdotes. I'm using evidence. His pressure to sack ratio was the worst in the league last year. He was 28th out of 32 qualifying quarterbacks in QBR. That's not anecdotal. That's the only evidence we have with Caleb Williams.
That, and we have the evidence of him being the number 1 overall pick, and we have the evidence of how he played as a college football player. Listen, I have no gripe with them firing their head coach. He shouldn't have been there in the first place. But the idea that Caleb Williams is this turtle flipped over on his back, what am I going to do? And if he comes out,
let's use the words that I said. Let's use the words that
the NFC North. We should elevate the coach to godlike status. Is asinine.
When you have to change what I said, it's evidence that you don't like your side of the argument on it.
Caleb Williams is a high quality prospect. Are you saying he's not?
I'm saying that Caleb Williams stunk last year. That's the words I used.
Okay.
He stunk last year.
I think there were no positives. Caleb Williams, no positives.
That's not what I said. I'm saying he stunk last
year.
So
what does stunk mean then?
Yeah, what define
it means he finishes 28th in the league in QBR. It means he takes the most sacks in the league. It means he has the worst pressure to sack ratio in the league because he can't read a defense yet. He stunk. He did not help his team win football games last year. And in times such as Detroit, such as Seattle, he cost his team football games last year.
We're completely glossing over 2 games where the head coach couldn't even justify and I can't even remember what the moves were. Not calling a timeout.
Why did he call timeout? Is he not allowed to call timeout?
I'm just
not when they're throwing a Hail Mary.
Would Patrick Mahomes have called timeout in that situation? I guarantee you he would.
I think you're laying groundwork to set up the big win for Ben Johnson. You're setting the bar so low for Ben Johnson to be a great success. That's my objection.
Okay, 6-win improvement in the NFL, I do think is a great success. That's where we disagree.
Okay, then where is Kevin Stefanski? Because he's done that twice.
I've got other evidence on Kevin Stefanski.
That you choose to use.
Why is Ben Johnson just automatically going to fail? See, this is what I'm talking about when you use anecdotes. Like Kevin Stefanski is not the usual coach of the year. Most coach of the years are not.
I would argue that he
terrible.
is the usual coach of the year.
You were saying a coach who improves in 6 wins is automatically going to be terrible next year because Kevin Stefanski's done it.
I am not.
I disagree with that premise.
I am not, and I find it incredibly hysterical that you do the same thing that we do to you, and then it's justified in the sense of putting words in my mouth. I did not say that because they improved by 6 wins that he's suddenly going to be terrible the next year. I'm citing guys who have done that.
But that's why I'm saying that's
Kevin Stefanski is a guy who has made that big jump and then turned around, and it didn't amount to anything.
But in my example, I didn't say he's going to turn it. I disagree with the premise that he's going to be Kevin Stefanski.
And I disagree with the premise that my statement of overrating a guy by improving by 6 wins suddenly is somehow a statement that I say he's going to suck the following year. I just gave you the example of a guy who has.
Well, since you said Kevin Stefanski, I guess my reply to that is I think that's apples and oranges. I don't think he's Kevin Stefanski.
Yeah, I think you have taken a big swing.
I prefer Ben Johnson to Kevin Stefanski.
And I think that's fine. And it's largely because Ben Johnson is an unknown as a head coach, and all the things he has to do. Like the guy who's the sanest on this is Jeff, because probably every first-year coach is going to make 32, 31, 30, 29, 28 on his list. That is the most realistic way to approach this. I don't like it. I don't like it, but it's the fairest.
That is giving NFL teams credit for having made the right decisions in the past, and I disagree with that.
I actually think it's mathematically and as a gambler correct. Most coaches fail.
Then why do you fire coaches?
Well, there are a number of offensive masterminds who have flopped as head coaches.
Do you have
Mike Martz, Josh McDaniels,
tons
up and down the line?
There's tons that have been terrific. See Nick Sirianni, your guy Nick Sirianni has been good.
He wasn't a great offensive coordinator.
See Sean McVay, see Sean Payton, see Kyle Shanahan, see Kevin O'Connell. All the guys, see Andy Reid, all the guys on top of my list.
And most of those guys weren't even calling the plays where they were at. I'm talking about guys who were calling the plays, who were running the offense, who were coaching the quarterback.
All right, so my tier 3, real quick. Mike Vrabel, 11, Mike Tomlin, 12, Sean McDermott, 13, Dan Quinn, 14, Pete Carroll, 15, and Zach Taylor, 16. The mistake I had is I had Taylor still down in 4, and I had meant to bump him up to 3, and I had him at the top of 4. He's at the bottom of 3. Those guys are there, and McDermott to me is the interesting one here based upon where you guys are. And you're like, oh, but he's won this, he's done that. He has Josh Allen, and there is an element. If the whole reason for Ben Johnson is that Caleb Williams isn't very good now, and he's going to make him good.
That's not the only reason. But
if a major reason is, then it should work the other way as well. And it certainly does with me. There is all the close games. Josh Allen is tremendous. He was an MVP. And McDermott can't get over the hump. And it's not like, and yes, going through the Chiefs is tough. If Patrick Mahomes isn't here, how many would he have won? I don't know, because we've seen 2 coaches be able to kick the holy living crap out of Patrick Mahomes when he got to the Super Bowl. So it's not like, I get that the AFC doesn't seem to be able to uncrack that code, but it's not like playoff Patrick Mahomes is unbeatable because he's had his ass handed to him twice. And McDermott's never come close to doing it with the guy who is by far the closest. And actually, I think as a defensive coordinator, maybe even tougher to defend because of his running ability. And McDermott hadn't been able to get over the hump for it. So I don't have him down, but I think if Sean McDermott doesn't have Josh Allen, Sean McDermott's fired 3 times by now, right? Like I think Sean McDermott is making a lot of money off Josh Allen, bailing him out. That's my rebuttal to the why I think McDermott is way too high. And I think if he doesn't win and win soon, he's going to get fired because they're going to say, why are we not getting over the hump with the quarterback?
I give him more credit than the offense, because when you look at the Bills and points allowed, and the last 6 years, they've been top 2 3 times the last 6 years. They've been number 4 another one of those times.
Great defensive coordinator. I'll put him near the top of my defensive coordinator listings. He's 13 of my head coach. He's got everything you need. Their roster has been good. It's been their year. It's been the year that we fired up and run. And they have not even gotten to the Super Bowl. That's a problem. And he brings his own bag of his comments. He brings his own bag of sideshows to it. So
they've been to the AFC Championship twice. Like I said, they've won playoff games 5 straight years. I mean, I totally understand the lack of getting to the Super Bowl, but they've had success. They've had a lot of success.
I don't know how you can be high on Sirianni and not low on McDermott, because Sirianni's had what on paper appears to be a lesser quarterback, similar in style and what they do, but a lesser quarterback, and he's gone twice. And by the way, I've got Sirianni
ahead of McDermott.
I've got Sirianni at 7 and McDermott at 13. So I got him ahead, but I think McDermott's way overrated as a football coach, and I think time will bear that out. Tier 4, I go DeMeco Ryans, Todd Bowles, or let's actually, before we do that, we need to take a break. Let's do that. We will hear from our friends at Whataburger. If you are hungry, Whataburger is open 24 hours. That's right, 24 hours. You can even get breakfast from 11 p to 11 a. Get to your Whataburger today. Your favorites are back, Kansas City. Now for a limited time at all your KC Whataburger locations, get the mushroom and Swiss burger, 2 large beef patties, Swiss American cheese, fire-roasted mushrooms, and creamy au jus. How about the sweet and spicy bacon burger? 2 large beef patties, American and Monterey Jack cheese, bacon, grilled onions, and topped with sweet and spicy pepper sauce. Or grab the patty melt. Even the honey barbecue chicken strip sandwich. They're all perfect with the Whataburger banana pudding shake. Remember, Whataburger's open 24 hours a day with breakfast served from 11 p to 11 a. And don't forget, you can get all your Whataburger favorites and more by downloading the Whataburger app with the QR code. Whataburger, proud sponsor of the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.
Big moves, bigger vibes. If you haven't heard, Besame Wellness is now Suede Cannabis. Our colors and name may have changed, but you'll still experience the same great service on top of better deals, longer hours, and faster delivery. Smithville, Liberty, Kansas City, Warrensburg, and North Kansas City. No matter which location you visit, you'll feel right at home. Find the location nearest you and shop online at SuadeCannabis.com. Life should be dope. Let's make it happen. Suede Cannabis.
All right, Tier 4, DeMeco Ryans, 17. I'm not convinced. The follow-up to me was back in the playoffs only because his division sucks. In year 2, this is a big year for DeMeco Ryans. If he runs away with that division and wins a playoff game, I'll bump him up my list, but I'm not completely sold on him. Todd Bowles at 18, Kevin Stefanski at 19, and Mike McDaniel at 20. Coaches that have been to the playoffs, there's kind of a theme here. I got a little bit of Jeff Chadiha in me. These are coaches that have been to the playoffs, but I'm not sold. I think they're quality coaches. I think they'll consistently win if you give them some talent, but I'm not sold that they can take the next step in the big picture of things. Sam?
I don't think you're giving Ryans enough credit. I mean, that team in the 3 years before he got there was 30th, 31st, and 30th in defense. 30th, 31st, and 30th in defense. He coaches defense. They were 6th best defense in the league last year. They won 11 games in 3 years before he got there. They've won 20 in 2 years since. They had a really soft schedule 2 years ago. Last year, even though their division stunk, they still played a first place schedule. I think
they had 3 different coaches before he showed up.
Yeah, and he schooled your 4th ranked coach in the playoffs.
Are winning championships? Isn't that what it's about, Jeff?
Well,
on your list,
he's schooled.
I haven't mentioned his name yet, have I?
No.
DeMeco Ryans schooled your 4th ranked coach in the playoffs last year, by the way.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Let's go with you. Tier 4 for you, Sam.
Mine starts with 15, but I've got Mike Tomlin.
Or Tier 4, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Tier 4. I've got Mike Tomlin, Pete Carroll, Mike McDonald, Todd Bowles, Zach Taylor, and I've got Mike Vrabel at 20.
Mike McDonald, who was after him?
I had Pete Carroll, Mike McDonald, Todd Bowles at 18, Zach Taylor at 19, and Mike Vrabel at 20.
Okay.
So how is this tier put together? Like, what's the thought process? I was going to ask you the last tier.
My rankings of who I'd hire if all these guys were available.
So that's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I know I'm going to come in low on Mike Vrabel than a lot of people. I don't really understand the hype that Mike Vrabel's gotten as a head coach. I don't think he's bad. He's only had, I think, 1 year where he's won any playoff games, 1 of 5 years. He's 6-18 in his last 24 games as a head coach in the league. And he's a defensive guy, right? Defensive-minded guy. His defenses in Tennessee were 8th, then 21st, 28th, 12th, 23rd, and 18. I don't really understand the hype.
Which I would hold that up as a strength that the guy.
Those numbers?
Well, I would hold up the fact that he like his side of the ball. Number one, Andy Reid is an offensive guy, but in Philadelphia, 9 of his 14 years, his first selection in the draft was, and he was, by the way, the guy making the call most of the time, was a defensive lineman. Like, I think the head coaching part, you should be able to handle both sides of the ball. So I don't think being a great head coach is just coaching your side of the ball to success.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
And I don't think the quarterback position has been any good in Tennessee his entire time there. And I think if you go back, his in-game decisions, one, he was the guy who gamed the game on the clock and burning like 2 minutes. Like he, to me, is a next level guy. He gets delegating, and then his game management, I think, is exemplary in what he's doing.
He's a culture guy.
A great culture.
Yeah, and I think all that, I think all of that stuff matters. I do think that I think when he was on the open market this last year, and I think people were acting like it was, a 2-time Super Bowl champion who was on the open market. Like I said, he's had one season in his career where he's won a playoff game.
Can we agree that after tier 4, we kind of leave our, like this would kind of mark the end of guys you think could win a championship?
Oh, that was a long time ago. Yeah.
You're already done with that?
Tier 2.
Like you
tier 2 was so big. I had 14 guys.
Right.
Tier 1, tier 2.
So you don't think Zach Taylor could win a championship?
I don't think he is going to win one.
Okay.
Yeah. I think
not to go backwards on Zach Taylor, but he was in tier 3. I'm just looking at your tier 3 guys. Like Dan Quinn can't win in Washington.
I could. I'm just not convinced.
Okay, he could. So he could. But tier 4. Yeah. Tier 4.
I think those guys can get to a Super Bowl. I don't know if they're going to win it. I would be surprised. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, are you saying that for tier 3 or tier 4?
Tier 4, certainly.
Oh, tier 4 is a whole different. Tier 4 is like, Tier 4 is like, need to show something fast is how I looked at tier 4.
You haven't done your tier 4.
My faith in you is dropping.
Yeah. Okay. No. Okay. So need to do something fast is how you define tier 4, and that list is
what number does it start with?
21.
Start with 1, and that's Mike McDonald. In Seattle, it's Raheem Morris. It's Jonathan Gannon and Shane Steichen and Dave Canales.
Okay. Any bigger thought around these guys?
I like a lot of these guys for different reasons. And so when I look at this list, I'm more positive about people. And then the people who begin to get lower on my list are more flawed. And so I think that all these guys have done some good things and shown some promise, but they're also in situations where I could see it getting ugly fast. And whether that's a talent thing, whether that's a timing thing, I just don't think they're in great organizations to do great things. And if they do great things, they'll move up really high. They'll be the Ben Johnson of my list. They'll be in that top 10 category. But right now, I just don't see a lot of high hopes for any of those groups right now. Any of these guys in this group right now.
I think what stands out from tier 4 amongst the three of us? Anything jump at you, Sam, Jeff, amongst the differences here on who we have where? Mike Tomlin, pretty low for Sam.
Yeah, I was going to say
tier 4.
Tier-wise, yeah, but I've got him 15th overall. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't think that's terribly low. He's a guy, like I said, who hasn't won a playoff game since 2016. But
comparatively, though, Mike Tomlin is 5 on Jeff's list, and he is 12 on mine. So he's not that far, like you said, numerically from me.
Well, the credit I was going to give him is like the last 4 years. When you look at Mike Tomlin, the Steelers have been outgained every year in the last 4 years, and he's gone 39-29. So I do think he has to give some credit from that. I also think that, the Steelers are not a bad organization to be the head coach for. And I don't know that if I have an opening that Mike Tomlin is in the top 10 of the guys I would want to hire tomorrow.
Oh, wow. Really?
I think it depends. It's my offense defense thing. If I've got a quarterback in place and I listen to him and he's got a good plan for what the OC is going to be, especially if I've got a veteran quarterback and I think we just need to get the culture right and shape some things up, and I would love to hire
him. Does he do that? I've always wondered that about Mike Tomlin. Like, he brings in headaches, right? And I think you can say he manages those headaches better than head coaches would, but he also does bring in a lot of headaches.
Because you're building on something. If we take Jeff's word that he doesn't pick the personnel, then no, he's given headaches and has to deal with them.
Yeah. Well, those guys didn't. those guys didn't become headaches until they became stars. Like Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell, when they showed up, were not the same guys when they left.
George Pickens was a headache from the
George
moment
Pickens
he
was
walked
not
in the
even
door.
on the board.
Do you think? Yeah, and that's what, maybe he lobbied for Pickens. I don't know that, but I guarantee you, some of their offensive talent are not guys. Hey, give me this dude. Give me Jaylen Warren. Give me this receiver who can't catch. I don't think he was in there saying. Usually, guys who have that kind of power are getting a lot more talented people into the building.
I think
the thing about Tomlin that I will say that I think he's been around so long that people have forgotten what he was good at. I think he's very much like Andy Reid was at the end of his days in Philadelphia. People forget how good of a coach he is because you're just seeing, oh, this team's like mediocre now. They're not getting it done. When they were winning, that team when that team was coming to Kansas City, it was like a street gang showing up. They were coming to kick people's asses. And so they've lost some of that, but he can definitely still deliver that.
I think that's fair. I mean, Stern made a great point. First of all, Stern and I said at the top, Mike Tomlin was the hardest coach to grade on this thing. I ended up putting him on I would not have gone any lower than 15. I considered putting him higher. And Stern brought up a good point about, while I viewed this as, I don't know what my roster is, who am I plugging in there? There are absolutely situations where Tomlin would be on my top 5 to 6 choices. For example, if he was available when Dan Campbell became the head coach of Detroit, you've got a great offensive coordinator. You've got, somebody to take care of that side of the ball. Mike Tomlin's a great choice in that sort of situation.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Tier 5 for you, Jeff.
This is hot seat club. Only 2 guys. I got Brian Dable at 26 and Brian Callahan at 27.
Okay.
I think time is running out on both. I don't think Callahan's going to have a long leash in Tennessee. I think if Cam Ward's a disaster in year 1, this
not the GM's decision.
Yeah.
Not the GM's pick. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Sam, tier 5 for you.
I start at 21. I've got Dave Canales, Shane Steichen, Kevin Stefanski, Mike McDaniel, and Liam Cohen at 25.
Who was 23? Kevin
Stefanski at 23, Mike McDaniel at 24, and Liam Cohen at 25.
Okay.
I do think Canales deserves some credit for what he did with a guy that I think everyone thought just was not an NFL quarterback.
That's why I see that.
And Shane Steichen, I think in other situations would have him. I think the fact that Shane Steichen's gone 17-7 with Anthony Richardson and Joe Flacco and whatever quarterbacks they've thrown out
17-17, by the way. You said 17-7.
Yeah, 17-17. I think that's not easy. I don't know how many coaches would go 17-17 with the group that he's been given in Indianapolis the last 2 years.
Yeah, and I'll add in my tier 5, and I started 21 as well. Mike McDonald, Seattle, Ben Johnson, Bears, Shane Steichen, Indianapolis, Dave Canales, Carolina, Raheem Morris, Atlanta, Liam Cohen, Jacksonville, Kellen Moore, New Orleans. And I think your point about Steichen is a good one. Like, if he had been in a better situation, what could it have been? Compared to, Jonathan Gannon, who's down in my lower one, the 2 coordinators from the Eagles that were hired, and he's had what perception-wise would be the better quarterback in Arizona, and that hasn't been as good. So that's one of the reasons why there's a difference there for me. But I think all these guys are guys that, I would tend to think are not going to make it work. I haven't seen enough to go like they're going to be there for another contract, I would venture to say. And I've got Liam Cohen, who's a first-year guy, Kellen Moore, who's a first-year guy in this, only because they're offensive. I give an offensive guy a better chance to work than a defensive guy because he's got a chance to affect what I think is the more important side of the ball. And I've got Ben Johnson in this group at 22. He's the highest of my rookie head coaches in there as well. I am curious about what Mike McDonald has accomplished that has him higher on your guys' list. Only by one tier. And by the way,
on my list.
He's 21 and he's 21 on mine. So in some ways he's the same guy, but I don't see it yet.
10-7. I don't think Seattle had a great team. They were, I think it was 10th in the league in DVOA last year and defense. After their defense, let's see their defense before he got there. In yards in their defense before he got there, they were 30th, 26th, 28th, 22nd, and 26th. So 5 straight years of 22nd or worse, and 4 of those are 26th or worse. He comes in and they're 11th.
Like, and what were they record-wise the year before?
The year
Because
before,
every
record
coach,
loss.
in year
like
one,
9-8.
every coach in year one gets a kiss. They all get the let's pay attention, let's focus. It's a new guy. Because every team the year before and a guy's final year, usually it's his final year and everything falls apart. Hurt guys get surgeries, anybody busting their ass for the guy on the way out the door. So there's always usually a record kiss. It needs to be a big one from 2-14 to 11-5. That was the Andy Reid turnaround. It wasn't 5 or 6 games. It was 9 games.
What was Seattle before McDowell got there? I think they were competing for a playoff spot.
I thought so too.
Yeah, I think so.
They
went 9-8. They went 7-10, 9-8, 9-8, and then they were 10-7 with him.
And I will say this: the jump from middle of the pack to the top is a much more difficult jump than bottom of the barrel to middle of the pack. Like that. That's my rub with coaches getting Coach of the Year for being mediocre. And I think a couple of mediocre teams make the playoffs every year. Like the playoffs is given this, but he's a playoff team. Yeah, because 3 things went their way. They're really no different. They're 10-7. They're no different than the 7-10 team, other than they didn't get hurt to hell or the schedule smiled on them. Right? Like to me, 12 and up are the difference makers. You move into that, you've really accomplished something. And so, 10-7, I'm not too fired up about. All right, final tier. Brian Callahan, Tennessee, Jonathan Gannon, Arizona, Aaron Glenn, the Jets, Brian Schottenheimer, Dallas, and Brian Dable. I'm not sure how he's still coaching. And not only has he not won, he didn't get anywhere with Daniel Jones. He showed up as quarterback, which you cannot do. I don't know why anybody would have confidence in him after the temper tantrums he threw and just threw Daniel Jones under the bus. I don't like the idea of signing Daniel Jones either, but you were either on board or told to live with it, and you immediately just made it clear, I want no part to do with this guy. That is something you cannot come back from, and it's not something that you can be a successful coach doing. Maybe he'll learn from it and be better in the next job, but he is dead man walking and has been for 2 years. The Giants must be cheap. I don't know what they're doing with Brian Dable still as their head coach. Tier 6, Sam.
Every one of my tier 6 is guys who I think this will be their last head coaching job. I've got 26, Kellen Moore. I've just never really understood the hype with him. 27, Jonathan Gannon. 28, Brian Callahan. 29, Raheem Morris. 30, Dayball. 31, Aaron Glenn. And 32, Brian Schottenheimer.
Okay.
Firing people on the
Brian
way out
Schottenheimer at 32.
I'm not firing him. I just think this is their last job. I don't think they're getting other head coaching jobs. With Raheem Morris, it's because this is his second chance, and the first chance didn't go well. I don't think he's getting a third job.
Why so down? And I'm not disagreeing with you. I've got Brian Schottenheimer 31, but reason for having him dead last.
A coach who's on nobody's radar. 31 other teams would not have hired Brian Schottenheimer, would not have even interviewed to consider hiring Brian Schottenheimer. When only one of the 32 teams wants you, I don't think it's a great sign. We've all known about Brian Schottenheimer for a long, long, long time. There's a reason he's just now getting his first shot, I think.
Okay. Jeff?
These are the unproven guys. That's my tier 6. And Ben Johnson's the best of the bunch, I think. 28, Aaron Glenn, 29, Liam Cohen, 30, Kellen Moore, 31, and Brian Schottenheimer, 32. Same. I think Brian Schottenheimer is in a no-win situation in Dallas.
But he does inherit talent.
Yeah.
And he inherits a personnel department that nobody wants to admit is better than they are ever given credit for.
But everybody who coaches there ends up not lasting very long, right? Or not being able to do what they want to do. There's always the specter of
who was their coach last year?
Mike McCarthy.
If Mike McCarthy didn't get fired, where would he be on this list?
Probably middle of the pack.
Right? Partially because he's won a championship.
Yeah.
17-ish maybe.
Yeah, but he had 4 12-win seasons with the Cowboys.
Mm-hmm.
But
they've lost a lot of talent.
I wouldn't have fired Mike McCarthy. I think that's where you're getting at. I wouldn't have fired Mike McCarthy.
I wouldn't either. But my point is, do we think Brian Schottenheimer is going to do what? 4 wins, 5 wins, 4 wins, fired?
No. I don't know what he's going to do. I just feel like of the guys who are going in those situations, I think there's probably better opportunity for them to be themselves, to put their personality on the team, and to not have. I think when you're dealing with an owner who is as all-consuming as Jerry Jones, I think that makes it hard to succeed. And the players know it. And so buy-in is much harder to get. I think Mike McCarthy had a better chance to do what he did because he had that success. I think for a guy like Brian Schottenheimer, who's less proven, I think it's going to be a lot harder.
All right. For the record, I had Kyle Shanahan in my tier 1, but at the bottom of tier 1 last year. So I did drop him, Sam, just to go back to what you did. Any last nugget you throw out? Anything that jumps at you after we've looked at each other's lists? Sam?
I think the most convincing case you guys made against what I said was Mike Vrabel. And I'm still lower on Mike Vrabel than you guys are. I probably would move him up to maybe the 17 range or somewhere around that. I think I had him at 20. Maybe more like the 16, 17 range is fair for Mike Vrabel.
It's crazy because you were dinging him for the defensive stuff, but he was the defensive coordinator for the Texans when he got that job. And they
32nd. Last in the league in yards. Yep. And that was part of the resume that I looked up as well. Like, he's never coached a good defense. And even though he's a defensive guy, I think you guys make good points about he's great at the end game stuff. And Soren, I hadn't thought about that. So good that he pissed off Bill Belichick in the middle of a playoff game, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think the game plan stuff could matter too, but I still am not considering him like that top 12 range.
I think we're gonna learn a lot. Here, he's taking over a turd in New England, so we're going to learn a lot about him. I think it's fair. Jeff, anything pop from you? Anything you do different?
No, I like my list. I mean, look, my list, like you said, it's easier for me to make choices because I'm going off the labels. Here's the club that I'm making for this group. I think you guys have a different set of logic that you follow, which I have no problem with. But for me, it's look, I'm going to defend Nick Sirianni on the way out the door here. I think you forget when the Chiefs played them when he was in his first year, and they had to turn their offense into a run-first offense because Jalen Hurts couldn't handle it. They became the best rushing team in the league, and they made the playoffs with a quarterback who subsequently became an MVP candidate. I think that he's done amazing things with that quarterback, which for a quarterback guy, Soren, I would hope you would give him credit for that.
I don't know how many coaches go 48-20 with Jalen Hurts.
I think Jalen Hurts is better than he's been given credit for. I will say that. I think Jalen Hurts is not good and Sirianni's all of it. I think that's an unfair narrative. And I know that's not what you guys are saying, but I think some people act like he's just a runner and he can't throw it. He can spin it. I mean, he spun it against the Chiefs in the first Super Bowl that they played. He's a better quarterback than he's given credit for. And I will reiterate, I have him 7. Okay, I have him in tier 2. Yeah. I don't have him way down. And I will say this in his defense. I think the fact that, he has done it with different styles and he's done it with different coordinators. Like, if there's a strongest thing, the thing that I would say is the most compelling case for Nick Sirianni to be successful moving forward is the fact that he has turned over his coordinators and been fine.
Yeah, I mentioned that when I
know, but I'm saying I'm just reiterating that to me is if I didn't give enough credit or I want to underscore on what I think is his best accomplishment, because that is a big part of the equation. Can you win as your guys start to leave? And Nick Sirianni's done that. The main thing for me, I don't question his coaching chops at all. I question his management chops. I think he will ultimately be his own demise. And I think he's a ticking time bomb. And I really do. Listen, if he's calm, cool, and collected and they go back-to-back this year, I'll back way off. But I really expect that a fat new contract and a Super Bowl ring on his finger, he's going to be an insufferable pain in the ass to his team. And I think there will be rifts with players because now he's empowered. Like, there's nothing like I think him and the quarterback will blow up, and I think that'll be a problem. That's what I think will happen when it's all said and done. Listen, you can always support the Red Gold and Bold podcast by supporting our great sponsors. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, no commissions, in-house crews. Every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com. By our friends at Suede Cannabis. If you haven't heard, Best Me Wellness is now Suede Cannabis. Find the nearest location online, plus shop online at Suede cannabis.com by our friends at Whataburger. Take advantage for a limited time. You can get the mushroom and Swiss burger, sweet and spicy bacon burger, honey barbecue chicken strip sandwich, and the patty melt, plus a wonderful banana pudding shake to wash it all down. Open 24 hours. That is our friends at Whataburger. And if you've been hurt in an accident, don't wait. Text right now. Northland Injury Laws, Kansas City's Google. 5-star rated personal injury lawyers. Text HURT, H-U-R-T, to 22222 or call 816-400-HURT. We'll be back to battle again on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. For Jeff Chadiha, for Sam McDowell, I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us on the Red, Gold, and